the surrounding is like a three-dimensional mirror, in the sense that it will play things out with us, and in a much more profound way than you can imagine.
Yeah, this is exactly proof of the fact that the observer is the observed. This is the proof, but we are not raised this way, so we don't believe it. But we are the observed. If I am split and I'm hurt and I feel worthless, my world is going to be worthless. But if I had another program where I would be love and acceptance, my world would mimic that.
Yes.
And now you're going into treacherous ground, because you have the group of people, the love and light people, that will then say, okay, I get it. Let's just reject everything negative. And I do not want to be around negative people. I only want positive people. And this is also very dangerous, because, tell us.
Well, exactly, because it is the bipolar mind trying to understand a multidimensional teaching. So what happens? It is picked up in a split sense, in a broken sense. So you would get someone that would be saying, okay, so you need to be love and light, and then you will attract love and light. But their interpretation of love and light is a fractured one. It's not real love and light. It is the opposite of what they would be So they would be running from negativity and darkness and ugliness and poverty and what have you. So they interpret this teaching. This is why also Jung said that the Western mind is at a great loss in trying to practice Eastern things, because the Western mind is extremely traumatized and fractured, and then without having healed that split mind, goes on to practice teachings that are really at the next level, which is what I would call the wave, and then you get a complete corruption, and then you get it's actually, most of the New Age is based on this, and that is that while speaking these nice words, it's basically all based on extreme repression of the opposite of the shadow.
Right, because on the radio here we have a program, and it's only about you gotta attract positive people, and if you have a negative colleague, stay away from that colleague. And why is this repression? Is because it's not whole, and maybe that one colleague brings forward your insecure voice that you try to put away. And that's why you do need to listen to that one voice. It's called also, like, that's why the whole idea of democracy does not make sense, because everything has to be incorporated. And this is what a lot of people, they just don't get it. If you to be whole means good and bad. To be whole means positive and negative. And only positive does not exist. We are not there. We are not angels.
Exactly. You see, and that is why this a very large part of the whole New Age movement is wrong. It's not wrong on purpose, but it's wrong and right. And it is see, this is important, because what you find, if you try to really make sense of this, is that you have to think in levels. You see, you have to. We tend to think not in levels. We tend to think very, very two-dimensionally or three-dimensionally. But if you think in levels, what you find then is indeed that at the bipolar level, you also have a good and a bad, and a black and a white, and all of these opposites. but these need to be merged to find the balance and the centeredness to graduate to the higher level, which is the level where what we talked about, where everything is self. You see, so at that level you would not be discriminating anymore. You see, at that level the whole vocabulary would change, and you would speak more in terms of wholeness, and not in terms of one good side and one bad side. But this is a tricky area, because the same way you have a level above the bipolar level, you have a level below it. So when the opposites are very much pulled apart, what we have found is that there's also like a door opened, but to a lower level. And that lower level is a level that is very much capable of doing a lot of very destructive things, so that would very much qualify to be what people would call evil. But that would not be what good versus bad is. You see, so long story short, we have a great difficulty in what I call a differential diagnosis, meaning understanding the symbols at each level and not confusing them. Love and light is now interpreted at the bipolar level, while the light that we find at the level beyond the bipolar level, which is we would call the great light, is not the light that the bipolar mind conceives of as being the light. The bipolar mind will see light basically as the opposite of darkness.
Right.
You see, and that's why. So there's this in terms of these levels, you find a lot of confusion.
Right.
But there is a level below the bipolar level.
Right, because at that level you get that there is a intolerance of the opposite, and even like schizophrenia, that they're not even aware that they may be flipped from one side to the other side, and they have no recollection of what just happened.
Exactly, and that's it. So the level below the bipolar level would tends to project itself, represent itself as light, and in a way it is, because you could actually see it as, this is what we call the solar phallic worship, and it has deceived the whole world, because what you get then is that you get this solar side. You got the sun and the moon as the yin and the yang.
Right.
And then you get this solar side that completely amputates the feminine, darker moon side. So then you would get then that this side would think it is the light, the sun, and it has no darkness. And so this lower side, lower fourth, some people call it, would in fact very much presents itself as light, as the light, and this is where we get the idea of Lucifer, which is light, which is a light, angel of light. But you will be able to you see, there's a scripture in the Bible that says that even the elect will be deceived, meaning, and it will be increasingly difficult to distinguish between the truth prophet, as they say, and the false prophet, or the false side.
Right.
Because of this. And this is why so many people are being deceived into what is basically a level below the polarity level, where, as it were, the feminine side is completely amputated, and you will see it. You will be able to. So wholeness would not represent itself as the sun. Wholeness would represent itself as the eclipse, if you wish, the union of the sun and the moon. You see, and the union of opposites, that would give way to what we would call that stage of the new world, or the great light, which is true wholeness. In the Bible, it would be represented as the Holy Spirit, or there are so many ways. And I remember in the beginning that I was working with this in dreams, that there are many times that I would, in the beginning, that I would be confused whether the dream was representing the true stage beyond bipolarity by including the opposites, or the stage beyond bipolarity by excluding them, because they very much tend to mimic each other.
Right.
You see?
They use the same words.
Yes, and they use the same words, and so there's also this idea that beyond the polarity you get like powers. And then I started to realize that, for instance, the whole superhuman movement, that there's a whole superhuman movement and all these Marvel superheroes, a lot of it is actually going to that side beyond space and time or polarity, but by amputating one pole. So you would get like Superman, that is this Superman, but he cannot deal with kryptonite, which is his shadow. So a lot of these superheroes are actually what we find as this idea of going beyond polarity or space and time, but by rejecting the shadow.
At the end, they also never get the girlfriend.
Exactly. You see, and that's why the whole Nazi movement of the Übermensch was based on this superhero, but by rejecting the feminine, rejecting the black side, the non-pure white side, if you wish. White in dreams is very often the solar side.
Right.
This is why the Nazi movement was also solar phallic worship. But that's the whole. This is why this stage of the opposites is so difficult. And the truth of the matter is that no matter how much we look, the idea is to try to learn to contain the opposites outside of the dreams in real time. And we have tools for that. But we always have to go back to the dreams as a second check, a second opinion. Because the dreams will never deceive you if you are busy with this work, of course. If you are not busy with the work of touching the shadow, your dreams will deceive you incredibly so. So even the dreams, which is like, for me, the only untouched area in your mind, which you can, for as it were, where we can find truth. If you are extremely split and thus exposed to that other level, then your dreams will be completely corrupted. But once we start the work of touching the shadow, of accepting the opposite, then the dreams become the lie detector, and then the dreams will always show us where our imbalance is in terms of how the dream will compensate us. If we are too much in the yin, the dream will expose us to yang conditions, and the other way around. It's not so difficult. It has cost me 20 years to figure this out, but in and of itself, it's not very difficult. So when people send me their dreams, or when I always work with dreams in therapy, because the dream will be that second opinion to help us to see in what sense someone is out of balance.